What's up, y'all? Today I'm sitting down with Andy, Sallée, and Logan Lindstrum. They are commercial real estate investors out of the Midwest, Iowa area. And actually, Logan's out of Florida, so he's buying stuff there. Andy's mostly in Iowa area. And they buy up a whole bunch of retail strips, office buildings, medical office, all this cool stuff. We talk a lot about apartment buildings, but we're going to dive deep into retail and office investing and what that asset class is like and how these guys are having so much success. Andy, Sallée owns over $140 million of retail and office property. And Logan is 21 years old, just bought his first multi-million-dollar property. So I'm excited to dive into both of those stories so that way you can see what it's like just getting started and fast forwarding 15 years of what this process looks like. Andy, good to see you, brother. Logan, good to see you, man.
Pleasure.
Dude, welcome to Charleston. I know this is a town that has taken your heart recently.
Yes.
Great to have you guys in town, and I appreciate you guys filming for Legacy Wealth Academy. This is something I've been harping on you for 2 years probably.
Yes.
I'm like, dude, triple net lease, retail, office. It's a really, really cool space, a really unique space. It's a space that spooks some people, right? Because they're not familiar with it. Not because it's a scary space. It's just there's certain preconceived notions in their head that they think they need to be sitting on a boatload of cash and this and that and some other things. So we're gonna spoof a lot of those myths today.
Good.
We're gonna
Sounds
talk
great.
through about how you built up a massive $140 million plus portfolio, and at the age of 21, take down your first $2 million triple net lease retail strip as well. So what I'd like to do is, and by the way, if you haven't seen, Andy's one of the few people that I've had back on spilling the beans. So if you haven't seen his original episode from, I don't know, a year and a half ago maybe,
Right around there.
check that out. Awesome episode. We've gotten so many good comments, reviews, and stuff on it. But his backstory is in there. So in an effort to just bring as much value and not duplicate anything,
Gotcha.
we're going to share your story through that podcast episode. But Logan, I want to hear your story. Like, dude, you're 21?
Yeah,
let's
sure.
share.
Buying some shit, making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Tell me a little bit about, how you became an entrepreneur, how you got into real estate, and how you started buying your first deal.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm 21, but I feel like I have an old soul and probably
Yeah,
around,
you do.
what do you think, 30,
I would
30
agree.
40 years old there. But I was very fortunate, and my parents were in real estate. Mom was a realtor, flipped a few houses a year, owned some rental properties. So nothing too crazy, but that planted the bug.
I think that's a key component for here is like there's a lot of people watching this who are probably closer to my age, between 25 to 45 years old, somewhere in that mix. And a lot of them have kids.
Yeah.
And I think what we don't realize all the time is that our kids are always watching us, right?
100%.
Like you
Yes.
come from a family of realtors, mortgage,
Yes.
investors, and
matters.
although he's so young, dude, he's been around this for 15 years, right? You just materialize and absorb through just conversations and hearing your parents on the phone and going to houses with them and doing that kind of stuff. There's things that our kids learn that maybe we aren't intentionally teaching them, but they're around it all the time. So although, hey, he's young, there's a breadth of experience and things that you've been exposed to, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I used to struggle with that, especially when I got into mortgages. I got in the mortgage industry at 17.
Yeah.
And couldn't get licensed until I was 18, obviously, but that was the challenge. And what I would do to counter that is I would just stick to the phone. Because if I could get somebody on the phone, I knew how to talk and how to close a deal.
Yeah.
And then it was always a joke because at closing, I'd go and they'd be like, "Oh, who are you?" And I'd be like, see, can't go back now.
Yeah.
But it was never a problem, right?
Yeah.
And those are just the little things that you can overcome. And it's through just having the right people around you to mentor you, to help teach you the things, and then just having confidence. I mean, you're never going to know it all. You're always going to be learning, and you just got to believe in yourself and just do. Just try.
I think that's a great point, man. I think
Yeah.
that whole confidence piece of, it's like, dude, we all create these stories in our head about why we're not good enough or why we can't do these things, or like, I need to be older and that's why I'm not successful, or I'm too old and that's why I'm not successful, or this, or I'm a woman, or I'm a man, or I don't have experience, or I have too much, or whatever it is. And the reality is, like, how have you built that confidence up?
I think it started, so when I was 14, I started doing landscaping. And I built up that whole book of business. I had over 100 clients. It was
Yep.
door to door, which came with all rejection,
Yep.
a lot of rejection. And what I found was by the time I had, I'd say 50 of those clients, they were all older people, probably late 60s, 70s. And just by through all those conversations and all those rejections from everyone else, it just, I don't know, I didn't care.
But the rejections also bring successes. And for me,
Yeah.
You
it
got
was
comfortable with rejection.
you got comfortable with rejection and you realize rejection's not as bad.
Right. And when you stop caring, it's just like you realize you do
Push
more
through.
because
Right.
it just doesn't matter.
Right. And that's the rejections don't matter, right?
Yeah.
The failures aren't really final, right? And
Right.
They're not long term. It's just a short term thing. We build it up to be more in our head. And then the little successes. I found that winning repetitively is a great boost of confidence, right?
Yes.
Confidence is the memory
Yes.
of that winning.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
if you can have those little successes and get out of your own way and realize that they're just stories in our heads of why things aren't working out, and just all of a sudden a lot of those failures or
Yeah.
saying no, it leads to the successes, and then those successes build more confidence, and then you
Yeah.
start looking around and you realize all the other 18-year-olds aren't doing anything.
And it's so hard at first because there's so much rejection, but there's not a lot of wins. But as soon as you can get that ball rolling, as long as you're aware of your situation, there's always wins happening in your business.
Yeah.
And if you can know to focus on that, you can just power through any rejection, and it's easy.
Yeah,
Because you
man.
always have wins.
So fast forward, how did
Yeah.
you? Let me fast forward 2 years, 3 years, whatever.
Yeah, let's say he's only 21.
on buying your first investment property. What triggered, or you're like, I want to own real
And
estate
also
instead of
explain
broker
why
mortgage.
you went from your mom and dad with flipping single family homes.
Yeah.
And at the age of 21, you buy a $2 million office/medical building.
Yeah.
Triple net.
So the way I got into
That's a big
that,
swing.
honestly, we just my partner and I, he's also my age, about an accounting firm out of high school, and the guy who was mentoring him were selling his office buildings that he owned. So that's how we got the deal. And at first,
So you did some creative financing.
oh yeah, we got him to cover half the down payment, good terms, and at first I didn't know that I really wanted it. I just knew it was a $2 million deal, and ego, I'm like, I want a $2 million deal. I didn't know what triple net was. I didn't know what this was really going to do for me. And I just know I wanted to do something big because I really wasn't at the time. I just had my mortgage stuff, but mortgages, I'm a W-2 employee. I don't own the company, and I'm just making money and paying the government 50%. I'm like, this isn't exciting enough. I want to do something that I'm like, okay, if I can take that down, what's next? So we did it, and then I'm like, wow, this is kind of cool. You know?
So what was surprising going into buying that property, and what surprised you as you closed on it, and then post-closing, like things that you thought you knew or things that you expected the property to do or not do that was completely different? Like,
Yeah,
was anything
for sure.
friggin' like just sideline you that, oh shit, I didn't realize that was going to be the case?
I was very surprised about the financing because, again, I'm 21 and so is my partner. And we're like, okay, I know on the mortgage side, residential, I qualify borrowers based on their ability to repay the loan, right? In commercial, you still have to have certain requirements, but banks mainly care about the property. They care about the asset, right? They want to know that if something happens with you, how are they going to get their money back? So that was a big kind of spin in my head because it changed the way that I looked at lending.
So residential is 90% borrower based.
Yeah,
Commercial is
100%.
90% asset based.
100%, yes, exactly. And then what I learned after the closing is that I grew up, my parents had single family duplexes rentals, and I heard all the horror stories. Didn't even have a lot of them. I had buddies that had them, didn't hear a lot of them. And we get paid early every month by Athletico, financial advisor,
And that was the
accounting.
other pivot too that we had talked about too. The single family, the flipping, the
Yeah.
fourplex, the sixplex. How much involvement did that have? And now you have a $2 million strip mall. How much of that time in a month's basis with that $2 million strip mall, how much time does that take?
Yeah, like nothing.
Like how many minutes?
An hour, not even.
A month.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
pivot.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the difference.
But like as we talked about too, like I know why people focus on and they jump into the single families and the duplexes. It's because it can be more lucrative on paper.
Right.
But once you start hearing
It
all the
creates more
stories of
liquidity.
people not paying and all that stuff, it's like, okay, yeah, my commercial building may have less cash flow, right? But it's not as sexy. But I don't have to do anything on it. And I can spend my time and effort to go buy another one of those.
And you don't trade time for money.
Yeah.
One of the things that would spook me on triple net and large commercial is like, if a unit goes vacant, oh shit, you need to have a lot in cash reserves in order to float that.
Yes.
Is that a myth or is that factual?
Oh, it's factual.
That's factual.
Yeah, and so before he knew that I bought one, one of his words of advice was just wait and don't buy until you have some stuff built up. I'm like, I spent everything I had to get in this thing, so let's just pray and hope for the best.
I wouldn't recommend that, but
yeah.
But here's the thing, like, and we're gonna get into like the raising capital side. I know it's a big reason.
I like it.
But one of the things that you could do is you own, what's the equity split between you and your buddy?
50-50.
50-50.
Yeah.
So like, if you find yourself in a shitty situation where you need to sell off a percentage of the equity, you could each throw in 5 or 7.5%
Yeah.
of each of your equity and give up 10 or 15% ownership to somebody else.
Very good point.
Who
Very
could
good
bring
point.
$200,000 to the deal. You know what I mean? And then you can infuse that cash later. It doesn't have to be done
Yeah.
right out of the front,
Yeah.
or right out of the gate. It can be done a little bit later if you find yourself in that position. Now, you find yourself kind of on your heels a little bit, and it's never fun to raise money when you have to raise money.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a lot more fun to raise it on the front end, but
Right.
Before you need it.
the good news, dude, there's exit strategies, right?
Yeah.
There's ways that
Yep.
you can figure that out in the future without having to worry about it right now. So what are some things that you've learned that you wish you would have known prior to buying that property?
Prior to buying the property.
Yeah.
Honestly, a lot. It just happened so fast. Patience. I'm residential stuff. I was closing loans in 20 days, and this took like 4 months. I'm not a patient person, and I'd find myself pushing people along because that's just what I did in residential.
Yep.
And I burned some relationships that way. When in reality, I could have taken a step back, realized this is just how the process is.
Yeah.
I can't force everything I want into place as much as I want to.
Yep.
So
definitely slow.
going forward, it's more.
There's a
of-
lot more. There's many more
Moving
variables.
parts.
There's many
A
more
lot more
people involved.
Yeah.
And it's just a
Diagnosing the
slower
leases.
business.
Yes.
It's a slower, like closing on houses in 30 days is normal in residential.
Right.
It's not. That's not normal. Cash closings in 30 days is not normal in the commercial world.
wish it was.
Right.
But yes.
Right, and there's a reason because of that,
Yeah.
right? Like just appraisals take longer, due
Yes.
diligence takes longer, financing takes longer, title work takes longer. Like there's phase ones
Yeah,
and
phase one.
environmentals and surveys and all these other things that maybe you don't have or don't have to the extent of in residential, where it just takes longer.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
for guys like us who are like, let's freaking go,
Yeah.
it's actually pretty good because otherwise we would buy some stupid shit,
Yeah,
not do
you're
all,
right.
not check
Yeah.
all the boxes
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
due diligence list
Yes.
and all that.
And a big thing I'm finding right now is those estoppel agreements. We're finding right now is a lot of the estoppel agreements on large commercial assets. Sellers are not willing to get us a fully drafted estoppel agreement guaranteeing that, hey, the tenant is current, the tenant is paying rent.
Yeah.
And that's been a large challenge lately. And you didn't have that a ton on that deal. He bought one where Atletico is one of your tenants.
They're
correct?
the anchor
And they're a
tenant, yeah.
multi-billion-dollar tenant. So
Yep.
you came right out of the gate
Yeah.
with a, thank God, a fantastic asset. But a lot of times it doesn't work that way.
Yep.
I worked at a grocery store deal that took 6 months, and then they wouldn't even guarantee the lease. They wouldn't give me a full-blown estoppel agreement.
Yep.
And be aware
seller-
of that.
the
That's-
seller wouldn't.
Yeah, they wouldn't.
Which is a red flag. Right?
Yeah, and you're like scared.
Explain
like,
what an
why?
estoppel is.
An estoppel agreement is just saying everything is legit. They are paying on time. They do have 7.5 years left on the lease. During the pandemic, did you give them any breaks? Did you not give them any breaks? You know, are they current? Is there any word of them moving? We had one deal that I was working, and they said legitimately, don't tell us if you find out any bad news. Like literally, they said that. So that's scary, right? So another
Because then they have to disclose it in the future.
Right, you got it. So we're like, we bailed, but that took a lot of time and energy. But that is happening more and more that I've never seen in the past.
Do you guys have-
just sellers are just a little scary?
You're having the seller sign it. Are you having the tenant sign it too?
Both, yeah, 100%.
And
We had a large situation just recently with that, where like maybe one tenant is fighting another tenant, and they won't give a clean estoppel agreement because they're in an argument. Well, I don't want to be in that argument, just buying a deal. So that has came up a lot lately, and
Or-
that didn't used to happen.
Or you find out they're not willing to do that. You go back to the seller and you say, hey, listen, man, like I'm buying a clean deal. This is obviously not a clean deal. So if I have to take on these problems and you can't fix it for
Exactly.
me, then I need a discount
On the price.
on the purchase price. Or I need you to, put some money in escrow until
In
it does
case
get
there's a
cleaned
problem.
up. In case this is a shitstorm and I have to take over or kick out one of the tenants. That's not coming out of me, right? Like you want a retail price for this. I need to make sure that everything's clean if that's the case.
And what we're finding too in a lot of these commercial deals is who you're buying from. Like if you're buying from an uneducated investor and they have 1 or 2 strip malls, no offense, but they're a different seller as opposed to a guy that has 50.
Yeah.
Like I have accredited investors that own 20, 30, 40 strip malls. Their leases are on point. Their estoppels are on
Yeah.
point. Everything's fantastic. But if somebody, just as you know in apartment buildings, if somebody's just dabbling or they have one or two, those leases may not cover my, in the triple net. We found one didn't cover the furnaces, didn't cover the central airs, or they didn't cover my 5% management fee, whatever it may be. Those are something that I think that needs to be aware. Those are a lot of things.
I'm working on buying a strip, retail strip, down in Florida, and we said, hey, we need estoppels. It takes them 3 months to get the estoppels. They give us the estoppels, and there's not a single signed lease. They give us a word version of a lease with the estoppel instead of like a signed lease with dude, I need it signed. I need to know what the fucking terms are of what they're paying, and like the estoppel's like, oh no, everything's right and accurate. That's in the lease, and it's like, but there's no signature on the lease. It doesn't outline anything. It's like there's a couple of bullet points that just aren't right. And guess what? If that tenant doesn't pay rent and we have to take them to court, what is the dictating document that outlines the terms of that agreement? And if it's not in place, dude, it creates too much liability on the owner that it
too much risk.
Yeah, too much risk. And in that, when you're dealing in millions or tens of millions, it creates a lot of liability. And we have a responsibility to our investors to represent them and do everything the right way and make sure that we are doing our due diligence.
Yeah, aren't you finding now our due diligence is just 10 times more explorative
on
what we're looking at, especially post-pandemic?
Yeah.
Like everybody wants to hide something. Like we had this lease.
Well, they still want their price.
Yeah, they want the price.
But interest rates.
But they're like, oh, during the pandemic, they didn't pay rent for a year.
Yeah.
I need to know that.
Yeah.
You gave them that kind of break. And it's just the credibility of the seller, especially it helps if you know a little bit.
Yep.
And that's a different world than I saw a couple of years ago.
Yeah, yeah, man, for sure. So since the last time you were on the podcast, I think you were at, 85, 90 million bucks or something
right around
like
90
that.
million.
Of assets that you owned. You're at 144 now, right?
144 million.
You've almost doubled your portfolio in the past 12 to 15 months since you were on here. How the hell is that possible, right? Like, and the first 100 million, you did pretty much on your own, right? But then...
So my story is yes. So I obviously met with you. I had, when we did the podcast, I had about $90 million in assets.
Yeah.
And today I have just under 145 million. But in the last 12 months, I took on a partner for that $44 million in acquisitions. So it's a silent partner, but we've been fantastic. So now I'm looking at raising capital and taking on more partners and just doing more deals. But I've done it the slowest, boringest way possible, obviously.
Well,
but now I'm looking to expand that.
I think, and we were talking offline, is like, dude, there's many paths to one destination, right? There's a lot of different ways to make money, and the point of this podcast and a lot of the content and stuff that I put out there isn't about this is the only way to go and make money.
Not a straight line, for sure.
Yeah, but like, let me expose you to as much different stuff as possible. And maybe there's some ideas that you can implement in your own business that come from the retail and triple net space. Maybe there's other ideas in your own business that come from the Airbnb space or the apartment space or mobile home space that you can then integrate into your own business, right? And create more efficiencies in what you already have going on. So that's why it's important to get these different angles. But I think going back to seeing how much you've grown in the past 12 to 18 months, this is like the silent partner that you brought on is somebody that's known you for a long time.
It goes back 13 and a half years.
13 years.
Yes.
Has watched you for 13 or 12 and a half years.
Yes.
Before he ever then started investing in deals with you.
Correct.
And then the guy ponies up X number of millions of dollars, right? So it's like, how many people are in your life?
Overnight.
It didn't happen overnight.
Didn't happen overnight.
Right? Oh, hey, looks like, Andy's been an overnight success in 2022.
They always say that, don't they?
And the
They
reality,
forget the 18 years before that.
and the reality of the situation is, this is a relationship that took you years, over a decade to develop before they started investing with you.
Correct.
And if you didn't keep your head down, if you didn't, stay focused, if you said, oh, hey, I didn't get rich in the first 3, 4, 5 years,
True, valid point.
and you jumped, then guess what? They never would have invested with you because there's some people who are watching you and seeing, are they just chasing shiny objects or are they looking to build long-term wealth? And when you show that you're steadfast, that you don't get derailed by tough times or by COVID or by interest rates, by all this other crazy shit, that they know, somebody with that much money knows that can and will happen, then they say, hey, this is somebody worth investing in. And then they start writing big checks.
You're exactly right. That was a big key component. When we sat down at dinner, I was willing to burn the boats, as we all say. And when we talked about that, my all-in is commercial real estate. Commercial real estate, triple net assets.
Yeah.
That's all we're doing. I want my one thing. I tried other things. I dabbled in other businesses, but I think he saw that because I'll be honest, for those 10 years, I dabbled in this or that and the shiny object syndrome. And I don't anymore. There's one avenue, commercial assets, triple net deals, whether it's grocery stores or medical or Walgreens or whatever it may be. So those are my thing. And I think the focus is what guys of those 9-figure wealth guys look at and go, all right, now we're ready to do
I agree 100%, man. And they want to make sure that you have the staying power that they're looking for. Because, dude, he's investing in a deal that he knows is not a short-term asset. He knows it's a long-term business and a long-term asset, and he's here to build legacy wealth. People who think at a 9 and 10-figure level aren't thinking about making money this year.
Right, and totally different conversations. We're not looking for cash flow. We're not looking for instant equity. We're looking for long-term wealth. We're not trying to get rich fast. We're trying to get rich for sure.
Principal pay down, property appreciation, depreciation to offset their other income. And they're making 100-year decisions.
Exactly.
Not 1 year, not 5 year, not even 10 year. They're making 100-year decisions.
Exactly.
And when they're thinking that far out, they want to make sure that you're mature enough to think that far out and you're only doing good deals.
And those conversations are so fantastic because they take us to another level. When they say to you, I don't need the money, want the money, I'm building a legacy for my children's children's children. This has nothing to do with me. That adds a lot of responsibility, but also a lot of care of like, we gotta rock it and really do well. Because children's are involved now. And those are great conversations. And on single family homes, you don't have those talks.
Right. No, I love it, man. So how have things changed for you guys as, you went on a big buying spree. Like, how are you looking at deals and underwriting deals with the rise in interest rates that we've seen over the past 12 plus months? And with the banking situation and all the other stuff that's going on, have deals morphed? Have sellers come down on price? Have buyers come up or come down?
That's a fantastic segue. So as interest rates increase, it's been crazy, right? Everybody's like not knowing what to do. Do I sit tight or do I relax? So what has happened with me is I have a lot of relationships with developers. They build a brand new strip mall and they want to make their piece and flip it to me. So now as interest rates go up, the cap rates go up. Everybody is freaking out. Oh, interest rates are 7%. Well, then cap rates are 9. You just do the same spread. So the deals that I were buying, say for $5 million, I may pick up now for $4 million. So I am having a lot of opportunities come for me.
Are the developers dumping them at those kinds of prices?
Yeah. So yes, I'm just getting the same asset for less dollars because my thoughts are, and my plan is those interest rates are going to come back to normal. Now, not those 3 and 4%, I don't think, but they're going to come back to normal life, say the end of 2024 or beginning of 2025. So I'm still just buying the same darn asset,
maybe
just
soon.
Less money.
With these bank issues that they've come across in the past couple of weeks. The bank's going out of business, and it's spooked.
It's creating fear.
And created so much fear in the marketplace, which that is what slows down the economy, which slows down inflation. So now it's naturally and organically being taken care of, where now the feds don't need to use their one tool and tick up interest rates. It's naturally happening in the marketplace. So I don't know, at the time that we're filming this I can't remember, I think it's called a terminal rate, was like, hey, we'll probably increase rates by 1.25% or 1.5% between now and the end of the year. Now it's at 0.25.
I know.
Is the most that they're expecting to increase rates this year, which is amazing, which is awesome and great for us, right? Because it still spooks a lot of the people short term. A lot of the developers are in high interest rate stuff. They got to dump it.
Adjustable rate mortgages, short-term debt.
But for us, we might be in a pretty good spot by the end of this year, and then going into next year, which is an election year. Typically rates might fluctuate a little bit in order to boost the economy, to make the whoever the current administration is look better on paper. You know what I mean? And get some excitement in the economy before the election at the end of next year. We might be in a good little lull right now where it's good to buy some stuff, and then we can refinance it in the next 12 to 18 months.
Right, I think so too. I think the largest transfer of wealth is going to happen in the next 18 months. I was fortunate enough to just spend 8 days in Sun Valley, Idaho with Tony Robbins and Platinum Finance.
Yep.
And I got to listen to 6 billionaires. And 6 billionaires, largest thing they were teaching us, how do you buy assets that create cash flow? And when are billionaires talking about that? They're talking about buying businesses, companies, stock market, hedge funds. Now they're saying physical hard assets, not your personal home, they create cash flow. What are you and I been doing?
Yeah.
Well, now we're just buying those same assets for 80 cents on the dollar. Now, if the interest rate to buy that asset is a little higher, that's okay because the cap rate's higher and the world will come back to normal.
Right.
But yes, fear is definitely a proponent because those deals that I were buying for X dollars, I'm buying them for less. I'm just, like Warren Buffett says, we're just buying everything on discount right now.
Yep. I love it, man. No, it's wild to see. So are the sellers a little bit more flexible?
They're a little bit more flexible.
Meaning they're flexible in what way? Are they seller financing? Are they flexible on price?
You know, and more flexible on price pretty much for me because I haven't done any seller financing. So now we're bringing Logan in as a part of the team and we are going to look at some seller financing. We are going to look at some capital investors. We are going to look at some partners. We are going to look at raising capital. I'd never done that in the past that you've been pushing me to do and now we are. Like I said, I wanted to build that first 100 million portfolio as my base. And now we're going to go for much larger numbers. But also, as you know, I've told you this before over dinner, you're building, say, 100, 200 million all by yourself. It's kind of slow and boring. And who do you get to have dinner with and chat with? Like, dude, we just crushed that.
Yeah.
I did 3 deals last year that I remember that, dude, it was so exciting. If you can buy a deal and it appraises for 600,000-700,000 more than you bought it for, you're excited.
Yeah.
Or let's say you buy an asset and then 3 months later, that tenant says, hey, do you mind if I put $400,000 into your space? Those are exciting. So I just want a larger group of us all getting excited going, dude, we just bought this deal for this and it's worth this and the tenant's doing this. So that's the largest excitement is bringing in more people and just having a lot of fun. And also that cost segregation and bringing everybody's tax bill. We've all paid a lot in income tax. So now being a part of a lot of different, masterminds, I'm a large component of masterminds.
Yep.
And in Tony Robbins' group, we're meeting a lot of people that, everybody is paying 7 and 8 figures in taxes per year. And as you and I, full-time real estate investors, we don't have to.
Yep.
And you bring that to some educated guys that are making $5 million and $20 million a year. We bring so much to the table. We get to all chit-chat and talk and like, dude, how do we pay less in taxes and have some fun and create legacy wealth?
Yep. No, I love it, man. I think that's a big proponent of why we do what we do, right? And make a big impact on other people's lives. And it's not necessarily about making more money, but it's about bigger impact. It's about helping other people, and it's about we have the ability to do some pretty awesome things. And I think when you have the ability, you have the responsibility.
Responsibility. But we got a text the other day, and he's like, "Dude, you're going to save me like $180,000 of my tax bill. You just changed my life." And I'm like, yeah, that was Tuesday.
Yeah.
So, for us, and we're like, that's exciting. And that's the piece that I haven't been able to have.
Yeah.
I did everything alone, and it's fun, and you go far, but you go a lot further as a
So
team.
let's talk about this. So you've had this internal story or a little bit of a fear about going out and raising outside capital.
Yes.
What are the roadblocks in your head right now about having some of those conversations?
Well, of course it's fear. Do you want to go to the general public and say, hey, I want to buy this $10 million strip mall and I want to have 4 other guys help with the down payment? That's always been a fear because I did 18 years doing this business where I saved up, bought the deal, saved up, bought the deal. So that's always been scary.
So why is it scary? But what about it? Is it scary?
Probably ego.
So it's scary to say, hey,
ego. I don't have the $3 million down.
Why don't you just put the $3 million down?
I'm expected to have the $3 million down. If you're buying 1 deal a year, you might be able to cover that. But you run out of $3 million down payment. So yes, dude, ego.
I've never had anybody look at me and be like, oh, you sissy, you don't have the money yourself.
And I get it.
No. So maybe I do have the money, maybe I don't have the money. This is I think the people who are sophisticated enough to invest in commercial real estate as an LP have been around the block long enough where they know that this is a very cash sensitive business. Sometimes we're flush with cash. We just sold something, we're sitting on 7 figures, 8 figures, and maybe more. And we're looking to redeploy that. And sometimes Like there's over the course of the past couple of years, I've had to take deals back from operating partners. I've had to infuse millions of dollars into deals, and sometimes the cash situation sinks dramatically. Right?
Right.
There's
It can
still,
change quick.
but the equity's still there.
Right.
And I think people who've been in real estate and are willing or been in business, not even in real estate, they understand there's cash fluctuations in things. And listen, I don't give a shit how much money or you might have. If you have the level of ambitions that you guys have,
Right.
We're looking to go pick up $100 million of assets this year, right? There's not many people who have 20, 25, $30 million
Right.
sitting on the
We're
sidelines.
playing the game at a high level, obviously.
And it's normal. Like most people syndicate real estate, right? Like that's a normal
You've been telling me
thing.
that for 2 years.
You're the abnormal one who's doing deals on your own, right? Like it's usually like it's normal that people are going out and raising capital and allowing other people to be able to get involved in
Yeah,
those
and
deals.
that's the biggest takeaway for me. Just in the last 6 months is the conversations.
Yeah.
It's so fun to call a dude and go, dude, my value add is like buying that $3 to $5 million strip mall, right? And it's 25% vacant. And I know owning $145 million in assets in a 3-mile radius of my driveway, I know I can fill that. I know my management team can do it. My CFO can finance it. Buying that deal, putting $1 million in cash down, and then 6 months later pulling my entire $1 million out and doing it again is fun by myself. But doing it with a group of people where Logan will bring on is really fun.
Yeah.
That's the piece that I've been missing.
And dude, they want to be part of it.
I
right?
know.
And the
But
thing
I always
is,
was scared to talk to them.
but you don't have to sell them, right?
No,
Like,
you don't.
All you have to do is educate. Like
that's a
if
good
you
education.
educate people what's possible,
There is no
and
sales.
the way
Yeah.
that we make money, dude, that shit sells itself.
Yeah.
Like we don't
Yeah, it
have to
does.
convince anybody into investing because of how lucrative it can be for them, how much they'll save in taxes.
Yep.
How much, what their cash flow would look like, what their principal pay down is going to look like, what their property appreciation is going to look like.
Debt reduction, appreciation, depreciation is my language. That's the sexy conversation.
Yeah.
When your debt reduction and appreciation is over $1 million a month, that's fun. And when you bring in 5 more guys or 10 more guys and they get to be a part of it, I didn't realize how much fun you're having that I'm not getting to have.
Yeah.
But I was always taught to make your money private, keep it private, don't tell anybody what you're doing, and be quiet about everything. And I was totally wrong.
Yeah, well, again, I wouldn't beat yourself up on it. Dude, you've done amazing in the what you've built over the past 13, 14, 15 years. And again, there's many paths that can lead you down to wealth, right? Like it's just what works for you. And I think for some people, dude, I didn't have access to capital, and so I just went out and raised money, and I wasn't afraid to talk to people because I knew there was.
And I noticed that with a
nothing to lose.
21-year-old.
Yeah.
He has no fear.
Yeah.
He has no problem having those conversations. And sometimes those are still scary for me.
Yeah.
So I'm learning.
No, I love it, man. I think there's a great dynamic
It's a good
in you
synergy,
guys
right?
working together.
And he's not my kid, by the way.
Yeah, right. And so, no, that's awesome. So let's talk about what are the things that you're putting in place in order to go out and start raising capital for these kinds of deals.
A lot of it, it's all relationships, and what you hit the nail on the head before. It's education. It's we're trying to learn as much as we can, and everything that Andy's done over the past 20 years, and we're just telling people. We're just starting those conversations, and by doing that, people are just throwing money at us. They want to be a part of it.
Like just the cost segregation, the relationships matter because
Yeah,
the girl doing my cost segregation does Jeff Bezos conversation or Jeff Bezos cost segregation.
Yeah.
Works with Tony Robbins. Some of these people are big players. Now you get to utilize those, and all of our friends and family will get to utilize those. My CFO was a bank president for 25 years. My property manager only worked for a billionaire in Texas. She runs all of my assets. So those connections they need to be involved with a lot of these other people, and they need the education. I can't believe how many people I'm meeting that pay millions of dollars a year in taxes and haven't heard what we do. Like you get a double your income pay raise by just hanging out with me, right? And you've been doing it for a long time now, and I'm just learning, and that's so exciting.
Yeah.
And how are those conversations going? You're having more of them than me.
People just listen, and it's crazy because I've been around this for so long now, and it's kind of just normal. But when I start telling people who have a lot more success than me, it's mind blowing that people don't know about it.
Yeah.
So it kind of is like wow, okay, like we're onto something. We're
Did you
helping
find
people.
that out of curiosity?
Yeah, people have no idea.
Yeah, I just,
Especially-
in my head, everybody knew what I know.
Specifically traditional business owners,
Yeah.
right? People who are not real estate entrepreneurs, but they have traditional businesses, whether that's manufacturing or e-commerce or whatever their traditional business is, they know how to make money.
Yeah.
Most of them are pretty shitty at saving it.
Yeah.
And all of them are bad at multiplying it. Not all of them, but there's a hand.
Multiply, that's
the
Most of them are bad at and those are the steps of building wealth. Earning wealth is 1/3 of
Yes.
the equation. Another third is saving your money, and another which is partially due to taxes, right?
Yeah.
That's your biggest expense. And then another third of it is
Preserving
then
it.
multiplying the money, right? Now, how do we get it working when you're sleeping, right? Regardless of you
How much
going
money
and
you make while you sleep is always
Right.
been my thing.
and so, those are the 3 steps. A lot of entrepreneurs are really good at making the money. Fewer are good at saving it, and even fewer are good at multiplying it. So, if we can educate them on how do we save the
Yes.
money, and we can educate them on how to multiply the money, then guess what, man? Teachers have a natural credibility and a natural trust factor. And
Yeah.
so, dude, I don't lead with sales. I lead with
Right.
just educating. And if you like what I have to say, if it makes sense, and you can go validate it with your CPA,
Right, go
then
double
guess what?
check everything for sure.
This guy-
It's amazing how fun those conversations
They almost feel like they owe it to
Right.
invest in the deals because they didn't even know that this was a thing.
Yeah.
And chances are, that if their CPA didn't tell them, their CPA was either going to shoot it down, right,
Yeah,
and say,
right.
oh, you don't qualify for that, or you can't do that, or blah, blah. And the reality is I can introduce them to my CPA and show them how they do qualify, because the CPA looks like an idiot because they didn't bring it to them,
Right.
right? They
Right.
look incompetent, or so they're going to obviously think of a way of saying why this wouldn't work. But there's many reasons why it does work, and they are just trying to cover their own ass
Yeah.
as opposed to.
I think that's a lot of it.
saying, hey,
CYA. They're trying to cover their own ass.
Yeah.
I've been your accountant for 20 years. I've been your guy for 20 years.
they're going to look real bad if. Well, why didn't you bring this to me, Logan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
He
so
said, she said.
yeah, they're going to poo-poo it probably, but the reality is anybody who that they sit down with and they talk to who knows anything about real estate and tax, I would make sure that I would connect them with my guy as opposed
and
to.
that's what we're doing. I always say this: take me out of it. I have a finance guy. I have a property management person. We have a cost seg. Take me out of it. Don't believe anything I say. Go double check everything.
Yeah.
Have your opinion from your team, and then double check it with my team, and then you make an educated decision.
Yep. I love that. Love it. So, what's the goal for this year? For the next 12 to 36 months?
We're trying to buy $15 million a month in assets. So that's our goal.
And how many buildings is that typically? How many closings would that
So
be?
here's a thing too, and I know everyone likes the big, large deals. His goals are large. My $44 million last year, $44 million the year before were fantastic. I like my niche of $3 to $5 million assets. I would like us to see at least buying $10 million a month with other people. 15 is fantastic. But I think that $10 million a month number is something that's attainable. But I really like that $3 to $5 million strip mall.
Yep.
That's got a value add position where I can fill that one tenant. Now, do I have 8-figure deals? I do, but those are more risk.
Yeah.
And I'm just not willing to take a lot of risk, especially with other people's money.
Well, I think it's more so than anything else. What I found is as soon as you get into 8-figure deals,
Yeah.
there's a lot bigger, more institutional type people buying those deals.
Your competition
Probably
steep.
willing to pay more
And cash.
because they got deeper pockets.
Right.
And they need a longer term yield, or because they're hedge funds and they're real estate trusts, and it's a little
Right.
bit different
Yeah.
for guys like us who have to go pay 6, 8, 10, 12% returns to our investors,
down payment.
plus giving them equity and all these other things. So that's kind of a sweet spot. I like the $3 to $10 million because it's bigger than the small guys can qualify for.
Right, exactly.
And it's smaller than what the big institutions want to buy. So
Yeah,
it's
it's a good
this
market.
It's this nice middle market.
And I like the idea of this. I always said, my CFO always told me, and he was my banker for 15 years, and now he's been just kicking butt for me. But he said, whatever asset we buy, let's make sure if it goes 100% dark for a year or 2 or 3, that you can float it. And everything I own, I can say that I can do that. So I like maintaining that, especially if I bring on a partner or I'm using someone else's capital. Can I fund it if it goes 100% dark?
Yeah.
And that is important to me, and it makes me sleep well and just a little bit more warm and fuzzy.
Yeah.
So, and I know that's a little conservative, but that's kind of the plan of attack.
Yeah, I love it, man. Well, dude, I'm excited to
excited.
watch it continue to grow.
Thank you, my
Super
man.
pumped for you guys.
Cool.
And excited to check out the Legacy Wealth Academy course because
Yeah.
I know that's going to crush. We don't have anybody who's taught triple net yet. and I'm super
dive
pumped.
deep into it.
I'm super pumped to watch it.
Awesome.
Cool.
Appreciate
Thanks,
you
Sam.
guys.
Thank you, man.
All right, hopefully you guys got a ton of good value out of that. Make sure you're connected with both of these guys on social media and following them on there. And if you're interested in learning more about this and hearing their masterclass, check out Legacy Wealth Academy. It's $9 a month. You can check it out, learn from these guys and a whole bunch of other rock star real estate investors on what they do in different asset classes, how they build wealth, how they preserve wealth, and entrepreneurship and scaling businesses and everything else in between. So definitely check out Legacy Wealth Academy. I think we'll put the link in the show notes for that. And if you got some takeaways, put it in the comment section. I love hearing what your takeaways are. I love hearing your questions. I'll create some answers and responses to those questions if you put it in the comment section, and you can look for future videos on that. So make sure you're subscribed. Please like the video and help the algorithm. We're always trying to give as much value as we possibly can here. So appreciate you guys being here on Spill the Beans. See you next week.